What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets Haber. We are bringing you another week of the PGA Tour back from Merrifield again. We have the same location, a slightly different course. I had a nice little top. I was in second place, with an outside shot.
You were in second at one point?
Yeah, I posted it. I posted when I was in third, I think.
Okay.
I had Seifert, who there was actually a putt at one point where he could have birdied, and Hovland ended up chipping in. At the same time, they would have crossed paths, and that was what I needed basically. But I also would have needed Justin Thomas to hold on to win. But I had some really, Rory to started off the day. He was 12 under. He was looking like he could have been in the top 4 or 5 easily, and he kind of fell apart a little bit. Spielman just ended up shooting a par. Literally, I get like a normal 4 or 5 under, like they've been shooting every day for those guys. And $1 million if Justin Thomas holds up could have been pretty cool.
I had a real fun weekend, DFS wise. Didn't make money or whatever, but had some sweats in different sports, different categories of sports. PGA was just kind of a slow grind. Like after the first day, I just knew I was just kind of a little I was a little fishy. And then after the cut line came, I knew I wouldn't have too much of a chance. I grinded out. I got lucky in that my biggest buy-ins just kind of squeaked in with my 5 and 6ers. So I didn't lose that much in PGA. I had it's a good thing I don't know as much about NASCAR as other people because I had a really, really good sweat for a long time in one of the NASCAR races, and some crazy stuff happened. It wasn't even a wreck. It was some pit situation that let these other guys back in the race where I had like a lot of low-owned guys that were just murdering it. I won a little there. I won a little in MMA with a couple of takes. I ended up like breaking even for the weekend. But it was a lot of fun because it was day after day of just sweats and new things fired off. And I'm kind of psyched about getting into this week. And yeah, I am kind of psyched about baseball and basketball coming back too. But this is really enjoyable for me. But what I think we're going to do is let me share my screen because what we'll do is we'll go over PGA from last week. I have the cut sweats up, and then we'll get right into this week. Is that good?
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
All right. Let me share screen.
Yeah. So yeah. We can talk a little bit about some of your lineups from last week.
Forget my additional line. This is what I want to talk about, and I'm also going to talk about ownerships because I did a lot of spreadsheet work, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. So this was my exposures from last week, and I'm looking at the positives, right? So I ranked all this by my user percentage. This is in the milli. And of my top, 12, 11 owned players, all but one of them made the cut. You know what I mean? So that's like really, really good. Where I kind of got buried was that this one in the middle, this Dahmen, not only did I have 33% and he didn't make the cut, but he didn't even like put up a passable score to make some 5 or 6s possible. You know what I mean? Like right. He was plus 16. So it's one thing to not make the cut, but to put up something like that really did a lot of damage. And then also just I guess unlucky construction is that I had Dahmen in most of these lineups where all these other guys made the cut. So I'm very satisfied with the player by player analysis by me. I think I got a little unlucky with construction, and this one kind of I guess outlier here just really did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go back to ownership after we look at yours. Let's go back and do yours here.
Here, right. Let me see. Oh, you got mine right there.
Yeah. So
mine ended up not being great it ended up 140th because everybody fell apart. But I was cruising with 5 of my 6 in the top 5 at one point.
But I just want to take a look and see if we could just analyze what because I think it was different. You like if I look at your
I spread it out a lot more than I probably will this week, but I still felt like I still almost it gave me a chance to win the tournament if you look at it a different way because you ended up with Seifert in the right lineup
that's what I'm saying. So you ended up actually doing a much better job with construction than I did. You know what I mean? Because your top 10 or whatever, you had three of your top 10 guys didn't even make the cut, right? Woodland, Koepka, Scheffler.
Yeah.
and Hubbard,
No,
but you did just such a good job putting the right.
Woodland finished 5th.
No, he made it. I
Yeah.
have him at 100. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Koepka, Scheffler, Wolf, and Hubbard. Those guys. So you did a much better job of pairing the right guys with the right guys than I did. And it's kind of funny when you go here. Your 1, 2, 3, your least owned guys all made the cut. Look at it. Check this out.
It was frustrating because I wanted to spread out. I told you I like the idea of spreading out some of the unowned guys.
Yeah.
And I didn't take a huge percentage, obviously, but that was part of the strategy for me. That was what I was going to do, is pay up for the guys that I wanted and then try and spread in those guys and use my chalky plays as fillers, which ended up killing me in a lot of lineups. But still, you know what I mean? We had chances still even with that.
All right, so we're going to have some fun. So somebody tweeted this, and I said I was going to do this last week. So what I did, and if anyone wants to complain, they can complain, was I wanted to see where the community was off as far as ownership goes. And this is not meant to like say one site's better than the other. Whatever. I want to talk about just how close everybody was and where the real differences were. So I put together a spreadsheet, and I used 2 sites as examples. I made a note of what their ownership's predictions were. And I don't think they care now, because it's not like it's premium anymore, because it's already in the past, right? So, and then what I did was I was able to get the actual ownerships. I put them in also. I wasn't able to get roto grinders because I couldn't figure out how the spreadsheets work, but I figured it out for next week. And so what I did was I ranked everybody by ownership, by expected ownership, and all this stuff. And what I did was I did a ranking of where they were off the most, right? And it's incredible the way life works. The notable player they were off the most on everybody was Dahmen. Like one site had 11%, another one had 11. The average, I guess, was about 11, and he went off a full 19%. You know what I mean? So it is that kind of punished. You know what I mean? Because I was expecting him to be lower owned. He ended up being much higher owned, and he
helped you because in the end.
Right, I guess, but so that's where they were up. Another one was really interesting is Cameron Champ. Like Cameron Champ ended up being 15% owned.
Yeah, that jumped. I had
and everybody else had him around 9. Cantley was higher owned than people predicted. He was at 27. He's whatever. And the one where people showed up, he get much lower owned, was Thomas. People had him at 20. One side had him at 20, another had him at 20, average of about 20. He only went off at 14%. So the one thing that I would say, by the way, in my initial analysis, and I have a lot of different metrics of looking at this, is over here, the difference between what was expected in general and what came up was really close. I mean, these guys I got to tell you, my props are out to all these sites. I mean, they were really good. I mean, look, we're going to find a couple of outliers, whatever it is, where they miss, like we did here.
It's going to look worse than it is to everyone else. Everyone else always thinks it's bad.
Yeah, no, but these guys were so good. I mean, and I'm literally comparing it, top to, what the average between these are 2 sites. Now for next week, I'm adding 2 more sites into the mix. So we're going to see, again, we'll get a probably better average and all this stuff. But it's very interesting to see like really how good these sites are with these ownerships. And what I'm doing is, this is kind of cool. Can't really show it yet for this week, but the way I'm doing it is I'm actually like ranking different sites' ownership, and then I'm going to see where one site might be an outlier from another. You know what I mean? Like, who's affecting the average too much? So again, I think that ownership is so important to get close and to get right, that I'm really going to do a lot of work on that. And kind of a little secret is that part of the reason I'm making the spreadsheet in this format is once we get into basketball and baseball and projections start coming out and saying, I'm going to start doing that with projections too. Not so much to say who's good or whatever it is, but just to see where the dispersion is between different sites, projections. So I'm definitely have a lot of fun with this.
I like this, man. I think it's cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's go into this week. Now, again, I don't know if you saw whatever it is, but what I did was I did a full I did a thing yesterday where, again, I didn't look at any content. I didn't look at anything. I just like went through and just gave my, give my overall thoughts. And then again, my process is after that, then I do more research, and then you and I talk, and that's where I get like the majority of what I need to do. And then, then Wednesday, just kind of tweak it. The first thing I would say, and this is my opinion and this was my opinion last week going into this week, right? This was the way I was going to approach this. And again, from a course perspective, and then you can tell me how you're going to approach in general, and then we'll go back to the players. I felt as though that the setup of having 2 weeks in a row at the same course provided a very unique situation, right? I don't think that's ever happened before. You have 2 PGA Tour events right in a row, right next to each other. So what I was expecting is a couple of things. I was expecting a huge narrative to be put out there, and we're going to see how ownership kind of plays out. But you would think that the players who played the week before, okay, would have a big advantage over the people that did not, right? Because they have access to the course and they could play, right? But then I was wondering if that narrative was going to just make some of those guys a little too owned, right? If that was going to be the overall thing, people would say, listen, I'm only playing the people that played last week. And then likewise, if you had someone who played last week and did well, I was fearing that there'd be kind of double narrative street, attacking these ownerships. You know what I mean? So what I was, again, I'm a golfer, and I know what kind of variance there is week to week in golf. So I knew before even last week happened that going into this week, I was going to end up focusing on a couple of things. One, to try to find guys who didn't play last week, right? And number two, try to find guys who played last week but just didn't do well. For whatever reason, because it's golf, 1/16 of an inch off of a club and you're Joel Dahman. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the way it goes sometimes. So that was my overall, before I looked at salaries, before I looked at everything. And the other thing I mentioned again going into last week was that the rough was going to grow out over the next week. So it's going to be a little even more important to hit fairways and reward people who can get all out of the rough a little bit better. What are your overall thoughts, if you had any, before you get into the players, about this week?
I think it's going to be a tougher course. I don't think you're going to see you're not going to see quite as many birdies as we've seen lately. Although we sort of got a glimpse a little bit of that towards the end of the weekend. People were struggling a little bit. So I think we're going to see, guys who play well in tough courses. That's who I'm sort of trying to focus on. The problem is this is about as good of a field as you'll ever see in a master, whatever, championship event or whatever. I really am having trouble filtering out all my top guys. I've got guys I like a little better than others, but I really like a lot of the expensive guys. And I think I might end up going back to the same thing where there's a lot of guys in the 7Ks who are going to be owned. There's a lot of guys between 8,500 and 10K that are going to be owned. There aren't that many guys in the 6Ks that are going to be owned. And I might just try and take shots with 1 to 2 of them in a lot of my lineups to try to keep off the chalk, because I'm going to be playing guys who are going to have some ownership. I'm just going to be ahead of the field. And the guys who I've sort of decided, the obvious ones, even with Cantlay being high owned, I'll be very high on him. I'll be very high on Matsuyama, who's projected not to be quite as high owned as maybe he normally would be here. I'm extremely high on Paul Casey. So those are the chalkier guys who I'll be sort of lineup staples. One other guy who I've got a lot of interest in at this price, is Adam Hadwin. Those are sort of the top guys. And then my top overall guy would probably be Rory, mostly because I feel like he's the best golfer. And honestly, it's a tournament where he should be you could say Cantlay's history here and Casey's and Cantlay with the great Sunday. But what if Cantlay shoots 2 over on Sunday and ends up 2 over after 4 days of golf on the easier part of this course? He's going to be unowned in that spot. Now, it was great to see him shooting the way he did on Sunday. I had him in my big lineup, which helped that he shot 7 under. But I would normally be trying to talk off that chalky stuff. But the other guys in the same range we're not talking about, we're talking about fraction of percentages between them. So I'm going to play the guys who I like best. And Rory and Cantlay and Matsuyama would be the guys at the top who I feel the best about. But it is partially a reflection of ownership. If Rory is going to be 30% owned this week, I definitely want to be below the field. Even if he was going to be higher than Cantlay, I probably would be. But I plan to be significantly ahead of the field on all those guys. And sort of building my other – I have a lot of other plays that I like quite a bit, like Rahm and Woodland but mostly I need to find 6K guys that maybe I'm not so high on, but hope that I mix in the right 15 percenters. And there's a few guys who are on my list who I think are kind of interesting. So we'll get to that if we go down.
All right. So let's start, I guess, again, I like to go panel by panel. Like I'm looking at, whatever 11K down to whatever. And I have my lineup over here, so I have to remember to get to these guys. So my first comment, and I did this in the video yesterday, I did myself, and my first comment to everybody and to the entire universe is that, the world has spoken, whether they're right or wrong. The DFS community and DraftKings has spoken, and they have announced that Bryson DeChambeau is the #1 player in the world. They have announced that. They've announced that Rory McIlroy is no longer the #1 player in the world, that DeChambeau is #1, and I think that's a very interesting statement. You know what I mean? And so the first thing that I looked at is, when I looked at this first panel, is, and this is my thoughts, right? Is I'm going to attempt, of these top 5 guys, 6 guys, this is the way I'm looking at it. DeChambeau, I have no interest in. I feel as though this is not the course for him. Now, in fairness, it hasn't been the course for him this whole season, and he's just been killing people, right? He's been doing awesome. But I can't see myself not playing Rory when he's cheaper than DeChambeau. I just can't do it. I'm not going to play. I would prefer to not play Thomas. Only again, this is my way my stupid brain works. Is, he played last week. He did great last week. He was just awesome. And I just feel as though just the natural ownership is just going to be higher.
I see. So in golf, it goes exactly the opposite.
You think
because
so?
Theoretically, after last week, why wouldn't he be more owned than
right?
All guys? And he's not going to be. At least I don't think he's going to be. I think it's bizarre that in golf, pretty much every time someone wins a tournament, it's decided that they can't win it the next week.
Okay, so that's interesting. So we'll look at that and see.
I'm just saying that in general, as a trend, it's been absolutely 100% the case so far. And even guys with good results, they'll just drop off the ownership map and it's not course differences even in some cases. It just doesn't make enough sense.
So you don't feel as though, again, this is my own thing from sports betting, horse racing, all this stuff, that a guy that puts up like an incredibly, I wouldn't say outlier performance, but a top peak performance coming back the next week, but
Justin Thomas is not that guy, and he's one of the best 3 golfers in the world.
Okay.
Or 4 maybe. If you want, I don't know. It's gonna get tough. But I just am saying, I don't see that. I actually almost think I like the better argument for me would be having a really tough loss like that. But I don't think he's the type of player that gets affected the same way that Morikawa may have been the week after. He should have beaten Berger. And by the way, Berger's another example of a guy who was low owned the week after winning.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, they raised his price, but he was also low owned. Look what happened to Matt Wolff after coming in second. Completely low owned after. And look, he didn't perform well, but Berger came in third, by the way. But Matt Wolff didn't. But it's still worth just noting that people just tend to get off of this. And even Morikawa was lower owned the week where he missed the cut than he was the week before. It's just after coming in second. It's just the way that I've noticed things trending. I think there's some interesting things we can take away from last week that we can keep talking about in different ranges. But one of it is that the course just seemed to play very well for Thomas. I think it suits him fine, but I think the same thing is it's just hard for me to separate all these top guys. So any excuse you want to use, I think that's okay to use because it's really hard to separate the difference between these guys. But I mean, if I found out for some reason Thomas was going to be, if I thought he was going to be the lowest owned 10K plus guy, I would be all over him. He's probably going to be somewhere in between, is my guess.
The other thing I had to say about this top group is again, this is my view yesterday that it really hasn't changed, is that I can't justify Dustin Johnson in this range. I just can't do it. I don't like his game for this course. I don't like his price. I just don't. Morikawa, again, this is just my stupid way of looking at it, is I was very all over him last week. What was he, 9,200? He had a big freaking week, and he was threatening to blow up. And then he just made some ridiculous putts to get back into it, and won. Good for him. I don't know if he's going to be one of my top choices. I want you to talk to me a little more about Cantley after I finish, because I don't really know too much about him, and he's one I'm thinking about. But the guys that, again, I'm very interested in these other guys like Webb Simpson at cheaper price and just keep hitting fairways. Matsuyama again to keep hitting fairways. And then as we get more, a little bit lower, we can talk about the guys that I really, really like. But what else do you feel about all these guys that are kind of like listed on the left here?
So the main guys, like I said, for me, are going to be Cantlay. Well, in order to be Rory, Cantlay, and honestly, I really think you're just getting a little bit of upside for price and ownership for Rory kind of here. I really just like him a lot. But I really, I mean, so the guys on the left, it goes hard because the range starts to shift. So if we just go 10K and above, the guys are going to be mostly Rory, JT for me. But I will have probably sprinkles of everybody because I like this range. I'm going to be playing the 6K guys, so I don't need to worry about spreading out some of the top guys. I need to more hope about trying to get the right combinations, which we'll probably get into more tomorrow because we might have one day of weather and the rest of the weekend looks pretty good. And that could actually affect things greatly for the cut. So we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about that. It might change the way we like certain players. So, but in terms of top range, I guess if you want to include the top range with Cantlay and Simpson and Hovland, it would still be the same for me, but I would be higher on Cantlay than the other two. I think Webb is an interesting tournament play. I think he'll be fine here. It's just a lot of guys, and I feel like that same thing for Hovland for me. And I think the ownership on him is just something that I'd rather take a less owned Matsuyama and play the long-term results. Matsuyama, if he made a few putts the other day, he absolutely would have been right there, or probably would have surpassed Hovland. If he would have had a day and even not won the tournament, but if he would have had a day like Cantlay did, he would be the highest owned player in this field by a long shot. But if he was still 9,400, and I just think he's a terrific play. He's been the best, made it the best stroke, most strokes. He also gave up the most on the greens. So I just think he's got and I also think that with all that, it's funny because he's still very safe to me. So I really like those four are my main of the top guys. And I like sprinkling in. I like Rahm a lot too, and I like sprinkling in certain Koepka lineups. I just have a feeling that he's so volatile. We saw the good and the bad in him last week at the same course, and I want to play that upside. And we saw it with Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm is one of my favorite. I mean, at 9,300, you have Jon Rahm, who, and I didn't notice him at first because I was looking at the guys who weren't on your team. But you have Jon Rahm, who, first of all, the price is ridiculous if you factor in just quality of overall.
He's going to be 30% owned, right?
He's not entirely going to be, and it's weird because his overall number, I mean, he had the 6 over day or whatever, but then he fires back with, a 7 or an 8 under on Sunday. So just the upside, we know it's there for Rahm. He hasn't been his best. He's always been good in tough fields because, look, he's so good. If he's not making his putts, I mean, he's going to shoot those 2 unders, 1 unders, and then he'll have a bad day with the 6 over. But then when he's really on, you're going to see those 7, 8 unders. And I love Schauffele in tough fields also for this price. So it's hard to rank them for me. But if I did have to, it would be Rory, Cantlay, Matsuyama, Casey, then Rahm for me. Those are my
yeah. So you're gonna have to slap me around a bit because you're gonna have to talk me out of my approach here because when I looked at this yesterday and then the day and then today also, I mean, I'm looking at guys like Rahm at 9,300, and I presume he's just going to be really popular. It just has to be. And Schauffele at 92, and Reed at 84, and Im at 82, and Woodland at 86, and Answer at 85, and I just want to play 5 of these guys. You know what I mean? And I can do it. I think like 5 of those guys. I mean, like I look at this lineup right here, for example. Like 5 of these guys can win a tournament. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it must be a bias of mine because I always.
No, but I have a lot of builds like this too. I think both make sense because I do agree more with this. It's just when I look at my overall ownerships because I like the top tier so much. And yeah, you can squeeze in these other. Patrick Reed's a great example of a guy who can win the tournament at a lower price. Another guy, Sung J M, obviously fits that category. I think Tony Finau just shot a 58 here the other day in a practice round.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, which I'll take because when everything gets to be so close. I'll take the guy who's starting to fire on all cylinders who no one's playing all of a sudden after we play him every week. So also been very good on bent in general. So the other guy is one other guy we have to mention, by the way, that you could also put in this kind of a lineup that could be a contender. I like Jason Day a lot this week. He looks good to me. This is his home course.
I'm the worst. I'm telling you, I'm just the worst.
This is his home course. He was right there last week. And he made a lot of mistakes. He could have had a lot. I mean, look, it could have been, obviously it always goes that way a little bit, but he was right there last week. What did he end up finishing? What did he end up at? 10 under, 11 under? Was it tied for 7th?
He was great. He was great. And is that mean that he's like better than he was for 6 weeks before? Or that this is an outlier performance where people
how is it an outlier performance? It's his home course with good track results. Like there's no reason to not like him here.
Okay.
And what's funny is that he actually played pretty well at Travelers. He just never had the big round. You know what I mean? Like it's not like he's been terrible the whole time since the break. He was, all 4 rounds in the under 70. It's just he hasn't had the really, really big round. But look last week, and look, I know it doesn't work this way, but this week you might see, something more like 15 or 14 under winning, or maybe not. Maybe somebody pulls away with a higher one. But I think you're going to see a lot more guys bunched up further down than, they were at least going into Sunday this last week.
You think that, and again, I'm just going over my takes. You think, so Justin Rose was pretty popular last week because of course history, and he was fine. Is he going to be? He
wasn't fine. He was.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be owned again this week?
No, he'll be one of the lowest owned. Justin Rose is going to be maybe the lowest owned player, like in anywhere to play.
Okay.
He's going to be so low owned. He shot 10 over. That's rough,
Do you like Tiger at all?
So Tiger's projected to be one of the highest owned players. My guess is he's not going to be nearly as high owned as it says he is. So I don't know. Sorry, I just got some bad news at our place. First of all, I went to go get my hair cut today. I'm just going to side rant. And of course, this is they shut the barbers down yesterday. So I just sort of didn't crack down. I thought I was beating it by a day for some reason.
Snuffed it right in there.
I didn't get it in. So now I've got my whole beard everything's disheveled. And now I'm just getting a message that maybe our building gym is going to close, and that would be a real bummer. Anyway, but even though I understand it. Anyway, so sorry, that's a side frustration. But what were we talking about?
I was going to say the Tiger. I'm gonna have 0, right? So
I can't.
I just feel as though in a field like this, he comes off the layoff. Let him play. Let him play one tournament. Let him play this week and miss the cut, or even get
one after his last layoff. I think it was.
I hear you, but I mean, but I'll let him beat me at 20% ownership. I just don't know.
My thing is I'll probably be half that. I just want to have. I'm not going to not play Tiger. So I'm gonna have him. I'll play my 10%. He did. It is worth noting though that look, these are his last times on layoffs. First, then he had about a month and a half layoff. Fourth, then he had about a month layoff, and 9th, and then 3 weeks later, 68th, whatever.
Any chance somebody would give me 90 to 85 odds that and I'll take Answer against Woods?
I don't think that they're that crazy different. I mean, I think the ownership's going to be similar on both of them. I'll tell you that. I like Answer too. I mean, it's about preferring. I think Woodland is going to be roughly the same as Answer. I think he actually might have a little more just upside in his game because of the way he can hit it. Fowler is going to be low owned, and he actually looked really good except for on his drive. Like his driver was terrible. If he straightens his driver out, literally he'll be right there. I mean, he was right there this week. So I would just rather take shots on these lower owned guys than Tiger overall, but I do want to have a little bit of exposure. And I'd rather get some exposure to Brooks. You know what I mean? I know he struggled, but he looked great at moments last week too, both on both back nines. It just depends on, putting those rounds together. And Patrick Reed's another one of those guys. If he puts them together, he can be scary. And that's why I said it. I mentioned Finau and Im. Although Im, it's a week where I'm going to have a couple lineups with him, but it's not a guy who I'm highlighting. I do think Finau and Reed and Woodland would be my preferred guys in those range. But because of my builds, I'm just not going to get enough of them. Like I said, I'm getting 3 guys 9K plus a lot of the time using 2 6K guys. So I'm not going to be able to necessarily get above, maybe 7,800 max.
My one concern about Woodland is he gained a lot of strokes putting this weekend. I mean, he made a lot of putts when he needed to. And again, that type of thing is not sustainable. And
wasn't he like number 2 or 3 also teed a green? Like he was way up there.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what I saw, and I was cursing at him more than I wasn't for like a long time. But yeah, So let's get into this other range here, because you mentioned a guy that I haven't played yet since the break happened. You mentioned Paul Casey a couple of times. Tell me a little bit about him, but before that, let me just kind of go through this and see what I like from here. I didn't really like actually all too much from this, except maybe going back to Ann. I have Leishman, who I like just because he's a GPP type upside guy as far as I'm concerned. And Varner, I thought, but he's even a little lower than this. But Ann, I would go back to, and I really didn't have too much love for this range. But tell me about Paul Casey and then anybody else around here.
Just super consistent, and a guy with upside too. This is a guy who could be 9K plus at this event.
Really? Okay.
He's just a very, very good, consistent player. Even after the whole long break, he finished 32nd his first thing back. He has, I believe, a pretty decent course history. He's really, really good with his irons, so that obviously is going to matter in this tournament. That's probably the most important thing in a lot of ways because you're going to be needing them. That's going to be the most important shot. I put less of a value of what guys are doing actual putting than maybe other people do. I just want them to have chances. That's why I always love Max. But Casey's a guy who should just grade out really, really well in this type of course and just feels very safe. But I also believe has that upside to be up there with those guys on Sunday. So I just feel like I don't have anybody else. Who I have a lot of guys who I like as potentially upside guys. But nobody I feel quite as safe with. In fact, the funniest part is in this range, the guy I would feel oddly safe with the most, even just in terms of making the cut, would probably be Sergio. I like Sergio too. He's not going to be that owned. I like him for tournaments. He's good on these type. This is a good situation for him. This is going to be a spot where he can use, play his iron game. He's cheap. I don't know. I think I am preferring the upside of. And again, a guy I used to consider very consistent, but he's really had a really bad Thursday last week. But I'm going to play a lot of Ben Yon again too. So those are the sort of the guys who I'm highlighted in that top of this range for me. Ben Yon, and I actually think Spaeth is a great wild card play, although somehow I'm not getting to him very much. But Sergio, Ben Yon, Kuchar and Day. I already mentioned Day, but yep. Kuchar's another one that I think you play for upside. But I get the Neiman play. I just feel like you've got better options. If I'm going to play that up, I guess he's got maybe, you could argue he's more upside, but I just think the other guys are just a little better plays in his price range.
All right. So you go down a little bit. I think you mentioned him before, but as you look at this kind of panel right here, Adam Hadwin to me stands out. He'll probably be owned, but he stands out to me. The other one, and I shouted out to you when I did my initial thing, like Matt Wolf at 7,400. That's more like it. You know what I mean? Like I could play him. I just, hey, you know what? It's gonna be higher owned. I have no problem with the way you played him last week at 8,100. It was a weaker field, and he was I don't think anybody played him. But I can go back to him at 7,400. But the guy that I can't believe the ownership is actually gonna do this. So I'm welcoming Harris English back to my line of 7,300.
Yes, sir. You got agreement right here. I didn't get to him, but he's a guy I plan on having at least 20% of this week. I really like him. One of my higher owned guys in this lower end of the price range. Definitely somebody I'm going to be playing quite a bit. I actually kind of like these lower 7K guys, but probably won't get to play as many of them because, again, I'm going to have to jump into the 6Ks a little bit. Yeah. But I do think that English is one of those I can play 7,300. I'm finding myself needing a lot of 73, 72, 71s. And I would say that I would put Harris English right up there with the rest of them. Let me just take a quick look at my actual ownerships for that price tier so I can double check that's actually accurate.
And do you keep track of ownerships? I know I thought about this. Do you keep track of ownerships by tier, or are you just looking at your ownerships and just see where?
No, I try to do it, but I try and do it lineup based too. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You could find an unusual mix, I guess, sometimes, but mostly you're going to be trying to. I just will do it when I do finalize my lineups, and it'll be different every week. Like this week, I think that there's a little more chalk that I like a little bit, partially because it's a tougher course and I'm giving that more credit. You know what I mean? It's going to play a little bit tougher. But Harris English, I got him. I've got quite a bit of Harris English. I think Kevin Na, I'll probably have probably around 10%, which would probably be right near the field. The guy who I think that, Corey Connors kind of stands out to me a little bit. I actually think that I could make an argument. Look, he's the wild card. He's no fun to play. Everybody hates him because he sometimes just withdraws after the first swing. But Louis Oosthuizen at 7,300, I just think it's worth a stab at 1% ownership. And I guess you could argue, like people make that argument for Phil and Bubba, but I actually think Oosthuizen would be the far better play of those.
Just because of his style, it's more steady than those two.
It's not that he's more steady, actually. He oddly kind of is, but he actually plays well in this types of environments where this is not necessarily, maybe you'd want him on a bombing course. Although I do think with the scrambling that Mickelson can do, you could argue for him a little bit. I just prefer Oosthuizen. And throughout the industry, you'll notice that a lot of people have actually, maybe they're not recommending him as a top play, but they're definitely saying that he's a guy you want to consider. And I just totally agree with that. He had a really bad day the other day, again, screwed up his whole round. And you just need to avoid those days if you're going to win tournaments. Speaking of that, like one of my favorite plays is, look, I may come off this. I'm just going to bet on the fact that this guy's a better long-term golfer than he's been. But Scotty Scheffler, I'm going to go back and torture myself again at 7,200. This is a guy we were paying $9K for a couple of weeks ago, and he was like 30% owned. He shoots the worst score on day one that round, but then he does shoot 7 under the next day. Scheffler, I just like taking the chance here. But he's not going to be my highest owned. My highest owned is going to be the chalky one in this range. That's Lucas Glover. I do think Keegan Bradley, it's worth noting, he lost 10 shots around the green, and he made up 10 shots on I think scrambling. So I think that Keegan Bradley is definitely in play for that. Like, it's weird that stats like that make you like someone more. But these are sort of the guys on the lower 7K range that I can sort of play more. I can play a little bit of, but I need to mix them in with some 6K guys.
So what is all this? Okay, so I want to throw my guys out there, and then I want to come back to Lucas Glover for a second. So the guys from this range that I'm going to be playing, Varner, who's in my lineup already at 7,100, and the other two guys is I would go back to Dahmen at 7,100, and also go back to a guy we played a lot of like a couple of weeks ago was Van Rooyen at 7K. So. I might go back to him. Tell me what's going on with Lucas Glover that's making him such a good.
I hate Van Rooyen for this course, but I think his upside always puts him in play. I don't know how else to say it. He's not a guy who I generally would want to play on courses that play way tougher. I would want him on a course where he could bomb. Basically, I want some long par fives and stuff things where I'm not going to have to deal with any potential weather or maybe even wind on day one. I just don't want to deal with it with him as much in this range. But I'm not going to say he won't end up in a lineup or two of mine because I'm not going to cross him off my list when I'm playing 150 lineups. But so Lucas Glover has been absolutely awesome since the break. And like, what's great about him is he's not just like making the cuts. He's like actually, these are all top 23 finishes. Just been super, super solid. Was good again last week at the same course, obviously. Seemed to, have his best round of the week. Oh, I guess he had a good round on.
What did he do last week? It's not in his stats.
He finished 21st. Is that right? No, sorry, he didn't play last week. Excuse me. He was the week before. Okay. I'm looking at the week before's numbers. But I skipped last week. Excuse me. I don't know why I said that. My dates are getting all mixed up with this lockdown court, whatever you want to call it, this situation we're in. But basically, he shot his worst tournament. He shot 8 under was at Schwab in the first tournament back. He's just been really, really solid. He's good. He suits well for this course. He has a good course history. At 7,100, I don't mind doubling the field up, and getting him over 20%, maybe 25% even. I like him quite a bit in this. And the thing that keeps me off it is I mentioned Scheffler, who I like quite a bit. Who I want 15% plus maybe 20, maybe even I might even get to 25% on Scheffler if I get crazy. Shane Lowry, I have a tiny bit of exposure to. Keegan Bradley, I want 10% of. You know what I mean? There's just some other guys that I'm not going to go back to Dahmen this time. I'm just not going to bother with it. I just can't do it. But I agree with the Varner. I think he actually is another one who's just been terrible around the greens. And I want to go back to your guy from a few weeks ago. Danny Willett won a major at what you could say the major that had this most similar. I heard this from somebody else. If you had to compare one that would play the most similar, he won the U.S. Open, I guess it was. Whenever it was. This guy is actually playing well. He's 7K. Obviously not going to have any ownership. I think we give him a shot, and I'm excited about actually giving him.
I like it.
No ownership there. So I know.
So how much do you play of a guy like that?
I think you could play. I honestly would be consider going as high as like 15%, but I don't know that I'll need to. I don't know that I'll end up there because honestly, I can't even get up to 7K in some of my lineups.
I'm psyched to see what you like down here. Okay, so cool. So
Like is a strong word. I'm reaching.
No. I'll say I'd like to see who you're playing then. You know what I mean? Let's
Yeah.
do that.
It's going to be a mix of guys. It's going to be the same.
I'm looking. So between 7K down to 6,800. So I wasn't going to play any of these, right? Actually, I was going to there were two I was going to just look at, and I'll tell you like the names that came up. So you tell me who you like. I heard some Ryan Moore, some Nick Taylor, and then maybe people going back to Bisenhood. And I guess if you're going to play this range, you could talk about Homa at 6,800. What do you like? Anything like here, or are we even talking about cheaper?
So I think you have to take some things here. So part of it, though, by just jumping down to this range, you look at the ownerships in this range, and I'm scrolling through a couple different things, and you're just not going to have any ownership on these guys. Oh, by the way, JT Poston fits into that category too at 7K. Just a guy. I'm not saying I'm going to have much of him, but definitely a guy that I wouldn't cross. I haven't crossed off as of Tuesday afternoon yet. So in this range. This is honestly not my favorite part of it. Brendan Todd, I think, is fine. Nick Taylor had a couple really good rounds last week on this course. I'm not excited to play him. Had one really bad one. I'm trying to think who else we have here. Patrick Rogers. He's just a better golfer than this, and he's still young. I mean, he's going to have his lumps, but I just believe in the overall. So getting him at 3 or 4% is not like an exciting thing, but it's something. Taking shots on Snedeker is something I'm always going to do when he's completely unowned and cheap, just because he can go out there and if he hits the ball straight, he's going to have a good day on these kind of courses. He just doesn't do it very often. Lanto Griffin, again, more betting on the overall that he's a decent golfer. These are not exciting plays. These are guys I'm talking about 5% of. Actually, more going to be higher on the lower guys. Bezuidenholt, 3 or 4%, fine. I actually kind of think that you can make an argument that Maverick McNeely is being overlooked this week, and McNeely and Homa would be the guys who I like the most in the 7 to 68 specifically, and they're both directly at 68. But I don't love either of them. I don't expect to have a ton of either of them. I just will have some of them.
So this is the way, again, when I was doing my thing, this is the way I think about stuff. So, I mean, I love those 7,300 guys, 74, 75. And the question is, like you said.
Horschel, by the way, I love Horschel. We didn't mention him, by the way.
He was good this week. So if you, like you say, I got to not hold my nose, but I got to take shots with these guys. So when you say you have to take shots of them, that means that you really value the guys that require you to take these shots, right? So that means that you, like, if you didn't like the 9,600 and up guys, then you'd say, then I don't need this stuff. I could just go up to the 73, 74s and just be safer, be more, balanced that way.
Yeah.
And I guess the way I'm looking at it is like these guys, like, and I guess that's the stand you take is I find that guys like Rahm, Schauffele, Reed, guys like that, I think the difference between, I don't know, my theory is that the difference between them and the top guys is not as much as the difference between like these 6,600 guys
so
and 7,400 guys.
Every week we've played, though, that hasn't been the case. Like,
I know.
We've seen more guys who are making it out of the 600K range than the 9K range. I'm betting on this playing more like a tournament where you might get two guys they make the top 25 and you're happy with that. Because you've got, I truly believe at the 9,200 plus range or 9,100 plus range, you're going to have likely 2 or 3 out of the top 5 in that range. So if you're going to have 2 or 3 out of the top 5 in that range, I want to take my shots on trying to get those guys right. And then I'm going to mix in. I don't necessarily need to get all 1 through 5. I can we saw it last week. I had one point. I had a chance to win the tournament without having anybody. I wouldn't have had the guy going 2 or 3, and they were both popular. But I could have done it because what's his name finished alone in 4th, Seifert at 4. Nobody had him at 0.9%. And then if I just get Sabatini and Streelman and they shoot the same, they shoot 3 under and 2 under for the day, I would have won the tournament if Thomas would have won, of course. But without having those top guys, I'm going to bet this plays more like a major like that. So I'm going to try and get these guys who are longer shots. And by the way, it just seems like maybe with some of these young guys, while they're longer shots, Matt Wolff was a long shot and he won everybody else. You couldn't have won without him. You know what I mean? So one of these other guys, betting on one of them being the guy. Now finding which one is harder, but I have a couple guys coming up that maybe aren't going to go out there and win you a tournament. But if they come in top 10, they might win you a tournament actually.
Well, then what you're going to have to do, I presume, Bobby, is that, well, there's two ways to approach this, right? Number one is to take like big stands on a couple of the 6K guys that you like the most, or take really big stands on the 9,500 guys and up you like the most, and really sprinkle the shit out of that 6K range, right?
Yeah. That's it. And I don't. So if I could commit to these lower price guys. Oh, Zach Johnson's another one.
Oh, you were the one that told me your friend of yours liked the Zach Johnson, or who was something with Zach Johnson?
Yeah. It wasn't me though who liked him, but he was good. I mean, well, he was good for one day anyway. So great. Like here's the next tier for me.
You want it? So, oh boy, we haven't even gotten to your man. We haven't even gotten to the.
Oh no, we're gonna go all the way down.
Okay.
Some of them. I don't mind going back taking a shots on Hubbard at 6,700.
Okay.
It's just about betting on the overall. I actually heard a lot of Graham McDowell talk. I don't think I'm going to do that myself.
You can have him.
Yeah, same thing with Charles Howell. I've heard some people talk about him, not for me.
Yeah, meanwhile, the people that won all the money ended up with the 0.2% on Charlie Hoffman somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, hey, it could have been the 0.9 on Seifert.
Right.
So I really like Troy Merritt.
Ooh, okay.
He's the first one who I'll have like significant exposure to down here. And again, another guy played really, really well last week on the same course, 6,600 at no ownership. That alone is enough of a merit to play him. Sorry, I couldn't believe it. I can't even do the dad jokes yet. It's such a dad joke. It was too much for me. No, but there's plenty of merit in playing. No, I can't help myself now. But he's coming off of back-to-back 20. He was 22nd last week. He finished 8th the week before at the Rocket Mortgage. I like him with some familiarity in this course now. Again, I don't love the lower tier, so it was easy for me to gravitate towards him and another player at the same price rather than spreading it entirely out. And I just feel like he's a very solid shot to make the top 20. Some of the advanced statistics, even the percentages that I've been looking at, he sort of grades out as better than most of these guys, with the exception of, oddly enough, like Charles Howell, who I don't like as much, and a guy a little cheaper in Jim Furyk, who I do like. But Troy Merritt would be the highest owned for me of those guys. I like Bud Cauley too. Again, just chronically underpriced. Obviously, his goes up and down. I think that his actual play has been better than it shows. Been really bad around the greens, and he can put a few of those together. Like again, you're not asking for much at 6,600. I'm not in love with this play, but a guy who I'm definitely considering. He's missed 3 cuts in a row. It's been a struggle. No one's going to play him. And but I'm going to take some shots with him. But again, not nearly as much as Merritt. I do like Furyk. I think that you can even play Furyk because of the style of tournament. If you're expecting 3 guys to finish in the top 5 or trying to get that in your lineup from the higher tier, you can take shots on trying to get a guy to come in the top 20. And by the way, because of the nature of the course just playing at a tighter range, Furyk's range doesn't necessarily change all that much. He's sort of, he can go out there and shoot 6 under either way. And 6 under would be probably good enough for him to make your lineup this week, assuming, of course, that, obviously he's going to make kind of 6 under. But so Furyk's another one I have some interest in. Taylor Gooch obviously has sort of let a lot of people down for a while now. But just as a better, is a guy who's better than – I don't want to say he's better than the price tag, because there's other guys in the range you can make that argument for. He's better than he has played until last week, and he looked great last week. So I'm going to hope he's on the upswing. He finished 17th, and I'm going to hope he's on the upswing and he rides it into this week. At 6,500, he and Merritt, would it surprise anybody if they both do that again? If they do that again and you hit on your top guys, you're going to have a chance at just making a ton of money because the ownership is not going to be there.
So how much money do we have to lose on Munoz and Ortiz again this week?
Oh, God. That's the rough one. Not as much on – it's odd that I feel like I'm going to – this is the time when Ortiz is going to go off, but I'm going to play some Munoz. I'll play a little bit of Ortiz, but I'm not going crazy.
Okay.
I have some of them. They're going to end up in some of my lineups. So if you see them, just beware. There's a couple guys though I still have left to go that I kind of.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
I like Norlander again at 6,300. I think it's going to be a tougher course for him than it has been the last couple weeks. But I'm going to take a guy who's been basically in contention at some point during both of the last two tournaments, whether it was Saturday or not, or even if it was just, what was he, the leader after day one or right there. But he's gone 41, 12, 31 of his last three tournaments. Again, shot 6 under last week in kind of a disappointing effort after, because he was, 5 under after the 5 under going into, into the weekend. I just think that he could absolutely end up being one of the more solid value plays. Definitely has top 25 potential. So I like him at 6,300 only. And yeah, we're giving up something between these guys and Kevin Na, but Kevin Na's back may act up and he may pull out again for the second time in the last 4 tournaments. You know what I mean? That's sort of my argument for some of these guys. And CT Pan has quietly been really, really, really good on basically tee to green. You're going to need some sort of a miraculous putting effort from him. But at 6,200,
Okay,
I'd really take a shot.
CT Pan and JT Poston are not playing this week. And you want to know why? Because there's 160 golfers or whatever, and these two guys really pissed me off. They cost me about.
They're an abbreviated initials?
Yep, they cost me about 15 minutes of my life trying to figure out why my spreadsheets were off. And it turns out that one site listed it as C.T and the other listed as CT, and it messes up the alphabetizing. And I was so pissed off at both these guys for ruining my taking 15 minutes of my life away that I'm just exiting them out of my player pool. And if that's not good analysis, I don't know what is.
I hear you there.
What about Neesmith?
Yeah, Neesmith's my other guy.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, but like 7-8%, maybe even I can see is probably a 7-8%. But another guy who I'm gonna do the same thing with is let's go back to Stuart Sink, man. I played a little bit of him last week.
He still plays?
He's 6,100. He finished 17th.
Okay.
Well, you actually recommended him a few weeks ago, and he made the cut, so I was actually impressed by that.
Okay.
He's made 2 out of the 3 cuts. Nothing great, but a guy who can, again, with the course playing a little bit tougher, it didn't seem to affect him at all when it did, and just a guy who can go out there and give you a shot at a top 20 that's at 6,100, like he just did last week. I know it's a tougher course and all that stuff, but I'm trying to differentiate some places. I'm playing the 150 in the Millionaire Maker now. Stuart Sink is not going to end up on my 555s, but I'll tell you who might is Tyler Merritt might, Furyk might. You might get I'm still not sure yet about all of it, but I've considered Homa and guys like that. I'm going to get some really low-owned guys in there. I already have some Scheffler, a lot of English, Horschel.
So I presume that the 6,500 guys that you're going to want. Okay, so all right, let's compare 2 guys. I think these are good comparisons. So between Furyk and an Ortiz, for example. The chances that Furyk makes the cut is significantly higher, I believe, than Ortiz making the cut. Yet the chance that Ortiz makes the top 20 is significantly higher than Furyk making the top 20. So which types of guy do you want? No, that's not true?
No, I would bet anything. Furyk's much higher chance. Yeah, Furyk's probably
really?
in top 20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You play Ortiz also because, like Rory Sabatini last week, he outscored almost everybody at 11 under, where there was like 10 guys tied at 11 under, but he was 10 under. But because he shot, he had however many eagles and birdie streaks and weirdness like that. Ortiz is one of those kind of guys who can get those, he can get those eagles and stuff for you. Overall, I think you just want to play Furyk this week. Like, you're not going to be low owned. I'm going to play some Ortiz, but I think Furyk is the better, safer play. But I'm gonna play some Ortiz. I still believe in the long term of this kid, and I don't want to forget about that. It's not an ideal course setup to me for him. I liked him better when it was playing easier last week, and he just wasn't great.
So what I think I'm going to end up doing, I wish that there were people that are watching that are in my brain right now, because this is so helpful to me. And just the way that I kind of just start with my own, I blend in with yours and all this stuff. What I think I'm going to end up doing is with my lineups is, how some people do, okay, I'm going to do X% this player, X% this player, X% this player, and do whatever. What I think I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to do a certain percentage of my lineups be of a certain type. You know what I mean? Like a certain percent of my lineups be balanced. A certain percent of my lineups be stars and scrubs and stuff like that. And instead of worrying too much about the percentages of the individual players, right? I just want to make sure that the builds have enough diversity, not enough, but the builds are diversified in some way. You know what I mean?
Right.
That, like I said, one way of thinking about it is, boy, if I'm all balanced, that'd be pretty cool. but then you run the risk of some of these guys, these top guys running away, right? So I think I'm going to make sure that rather than focus that much on the player percentages, I'm going to make sure that I also get a lot of the different types of builds. And like when you were turning me on to this other idea of playing some of these 9800s and 90 and 10Ks or whatever, and playing the 6500s, like who's to say that I'm right? Who's to say that, like you said, like my instinct is that the 7500 guys are much better than the 6500 guys, but you pointed out to me quite accurately that you might think that, but that just simply hasn't been the case. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
a guy like
you know,
versus Norlander or
yeah.
Merritt. These guys have been up there more than he has.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
Absolutely.
I know that some of the advanced stats show them, but these guys are still, and we're playing the same course, so you can give it look, while we shouldn't give it all the credit in the world, you got to give it something for some of these guys at 6,500. You're looking for an excuse.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your excuse. You came in top 20 last week on this course. Even if it's just one player and it's in their own mind, that's good. That's good enough, right?
Well, no, it's definitely, look, it's definitely, I don't want to give, you know, it's definitely an advantage to have been over the course. I mean, that's just natural logic. I was just worried that, and I guess I'm wrong about that. I was expecting all the content this week was going to be, we only want to play guys that played last week because of the run over the course. But I guess not. I guess people are not going to be just over like pounding on those guys too much, so you can go afford to play them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case. Well, I just has helped me too. I actually have adjusted a few ownership percentages since this started.
I can't wait to get to work on my stuff for sure, because I'm gonna be playing less. And it's so funny. I'm doing a different allocation of resources too. I'm actually gonna be playing 2 or 3 of the bigger ones, not 555s, but like the bigger ones, and less entries in the million, maybe like 20 million entries, like 3 of the whatever. Quite honestly, when I did 20 million entries, I did better than when I did 40. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes. But
I did better with 73 than I did with 150.
There you have it, right? You know, it's very interesting, because I always thought about this, is that you take the guys like the expert 150 max players.
Mm-hmm.
I always maintain that if I took my top 20 lineups and put them against the 20 lowest projected of their 150, I would be like a 4-1 favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You know, now, so I wonder how important it is to have those last 20, you know, or those last 30. I guess it depends on the sport.
It matters because you get to play Chris Seifert.
Right. Chase, whatever.
Or Chase Seifert.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
you get to play, like you said, you get to play Aaron Rodgers naked in the Millie, like you did. That when you had that lineup with the 2% this and the 1% this, you didn't even think you were going to play any of them. What was it, Jimmy Graham also? Yeah, that's right. I think you had the Rodgers Graham stack. That almost took the whole thing down, right?
148 out of my 150 lineups had players not named Jimmy Graham at tight end.
Right.
I played 12% Aaron Rodgers on a day where I think he was like 0.3% owned. It was
that's right.
And he threw 6 touchdowns. But Jimmy Graham had 3 targets and dropped one of them, which would have been a little 5-yard outplay that would have been enough to get me the millionaire.
You were the only person in the United States who did that finished in the top 1,000 that did not have Tyler Higbee in their lineup.
I was the only person in the United States who had Darius Geis and Aaron Rodgers together in the same lineup. Darius Geis was 0.2% owned, and I had him like 6%, and he had the most fantasy points of any player that day. Anyway,
all right, sounds good. Hey, you know what? I was about to say football's coming. I was about to say basketball's coming.
Hopefully.
I was about to say baseball's coming. And meanwhile, you can't even get a haircut. So.
And I don't know if I can go to the gym anymore. What the hell am I going to do?
Well, I will tell you, by the way, for those of you who are listening, I mentioned this to you offline, I think. But, you know, AAU basketball, there were 2 tournaments this weekend. And I know the guy that's one of the operators. They had to talk about pent-up demand. In Pennsylvania, they had 120 teams, okay, went and played. In New Hampshire, they had 150 teams.
Oh, my God.
Play inside, whatever it is. The rules were that everybody had to have a mask except for the refs and the players. They had coaches with masks. They had spectators with masks. And what they did was they had kind of groups of 4 teams come in. They'd play each other, go back to back. And then as soon as they were done, they were out. And I don't know what's going to come of it. There's going to be super spreaders or whatever. But I'll tell you this, they all got it done, and they played zillions of players. So, the NBA is going to find a way to get over their pizza issues or whatever it is that's going on with the bubble. And I think they're gonna play. But like we said, I mean, the first guy that gets it, it's gonna be rough, man. I don't know. I hope. I just hope that we can get through the first slate without the last game being canceled, like the last slate in March.
Do you know what I heard that was a little disheartening to me, though? Sorry.
Oh, no.
No. It's not that bad.
Okay.
It's a scary thing, and from the overall perspective of this virus. Rudy Gobert never really got sick or anything like that, but he still can't really smell. And it's been almost 5 months.
Oh, no, no. I hear a lot about that.
That's
about people months and months and months that still can't taste anything. No. That's for real. And by the way, just more bad news. So for people that don't think that kids spread this thing, here we go. July 4th party in Suffolk County. And let me tell you something. New York has been the best, okay, since in the last month or two.
Yeah.
And so people get comfortable and they say, well, nobody cares, nobody spreads it or whatever. July 4th party in Suffolk County, one third of the people there ended up testing positive. You know what I mean? It was and look, I'm not saying anybody's going to die from that party or something, but it's going to be it continues to be rough out there. Let's put it that way.
Oh, all right.
I can't believe California actually did it. That was one of my main takes, was that once they opened stuff up, it was just impossible to reclose it. Guess so. I mean, I guess not. I mean, they can just do it again.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's necessary. But
meanwhile, the salaries are in the lobby for basketball and baseball. And I'll tell you, remember they had the Christmas Day slate in basketball. It was the most researched slate in the entire season, because everybody had 5 days to look at it, whatever it is.
Right.
This baseball and basketball slate is good. I guess once it's official, they're actually going to play, right? Is going to be just so researched. And you know what? It's awesome. At FanDuel, they have a $3 tournament with $1 million guaranteed for first.
That's so crazy. I know. And there's literally a 0% chance that cannot be chopped, I don't think.
I don't know. A 10-game baseball slate?
Oh, on a 10-gamer.
That was on the 10-gamer.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant – I didn't see that.
Oh, let's go. 10-game baseball slate. Anything's possible.
Start getting some mock lineups in just for fun if I can.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be a lot. I really hope they play. I can't wait. I could give a crap if there's fans there. You know what I mean? I'm ready.
I'm ready with you, man. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Sheets, that was great. We will be back with you guys tomorrow. And Sheets, anything else before we get out?
Nope. We'll come back tomorrow, and then tomorrow when we finalize this, you'll ask me again. My final takes. That's 2 weeks in a row. My first was Chris Kirk 2 weeks ago. He gave us a good sweat. Last week, Morikawa. Not bad. Not bad for some of them that lost money both weeks.
All right, you got to give us the hot take this time, then. We'll make sure that's a weekly thing.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. Take it easy.